The morning had started like any other for Nicholas Hale, a billionaire known for his razor-sharp business deals and zero tolerance for distractions. He was stepping out of his sleek black limousine in front of one of his downtown properties when a small voice cut through the noise of honking traffic and murmuring passers-by. "Sir, please wait," it said, trembling but determined. Nicholas turned sharply, already annoyed. Standing a few feet away was a girl who couldn't have been more than 12. Her clothes were wrinkled, her hair messy, but her eyes, wide and glistening, held him in place. "My mom, she passed away this morning," she whispered, her voice cracking. "We're homeless now." For a man who prided himself on keeping emotions locked away, Nicholas suddenly felt his chest tighten. He didn't know why, but he couldn't bring himself to walk past her. Something in her tone told him this wasn't just a plea, it was the truth. And it was about to change everything. Nicholas stood frozen, the bustling city around him fading into background noise. He had heard countless sob stories before, usually from people who wanted something from him, but this felt different. The girl's voice didn't have the manipulative edge he'd grown so used to. "What's your name?" he asked, his tone softer than he intended. "Emily," she replied, her small hands clutching the strap of an old, faded backpack. "My little brother is waiting for me around the corner. We didn't know where else to go." Nicholas glanced toward the direction she pointed. Part of him wanted to tell her he wasn't a charity, that she should seek help from a shelter. But something, maybe the rawness in her eyes, kept his feet planted. "Where's your father?" he asked carefully. Emily's gaze dropped to the ground. "He left, a long time ago." Nicholas inhaled slowly, feeling a pang of something he hadn't felt in years, sympathy. He didn't realize it yet, but this brief encounter was about to drag him into a world far from luxury boardrooms and marble floors. And for the first time in years, Nicholas wasn't sure if he wanted to turn away. Nicholas followed Emily around the corner, his polished shoes clicking against the pavement. There, sitting on a worn piece of cardboard, was a boy who looked no older than 8. His knees were pulled to his chest, and he was holding a tattered stuffed bear so tightly it seemed like it was the only thing keeping him together. "This is my brother, Liam," Emily said softly. "We've been here since this morning." Nicholas noticed an old grocery bag beside them, half filled with clothes that didn't look like they'd survive another wash. His instinct was to think of logistics, food, shelter, safety. But the kid's expressions held something far heavier, loss. "Do you have any relatives? Friends you can stay with?" he asked, trying to sound matter-of-fact. Emily shook her head. "Everyone's gone or too far away. And Mom," her voice cracked, and Liam's small hand reached for hers. Nicholas felt an uncomfortable knot forming in his throat. He had spent his life avoiding other people's problems, convincing himself it was the only way to survive in his world. But walking away now felt wrong. Against every instinct he had, he heard himself say, "Come on. You can't stay here." Emily looked up at him, searching his face for any hint of a trick. And for reasons Nicholas couldn't explain, not even to himself, he meant every word. The children hesitated, glancing at each other as if silently deciding whether to trust him. Nicholas extended his hand toward Emily, not forcefully, but steadily. "I'm not here to hurt you," he said, his voice calmer now. "Just, let me get you somewhere safe for tonight." Emily's fingers curled around his hand, tentative at first. Liam stood, clutching his bear tighter, and stayed glued to his sister's side. Nicholas led them back toward the limousine. His driver, a broad-shouldered man in a crisp suit, raised an eyebrow but didn't speak. Nicholas simply said, "We're making a stop before heading to the office." Inside the car, the children sat close together on the leather seat, their wide eyes scanning the luxurious interior. Liam's fingers brushed the stitched seams as if he'd never touched anything so smooth before. "Where are we going?" Emily asked quietly. "To get you a warm meal and a roof over your head," Nicholas replied, glancing at them through the reflection in the tinted window. He didn't say it out loud, but somewhere deep down, he knew this wasn't going to be just for tonight. Something had already shifted inside him, and there would be no going back. The limousine pulled up in front of an upscale hotel Nicholas often used for visiting business partners. As the doorman rushed to greet them, Nicholas noticed the way Emily and Liam instinctively stepped back, unsure if they belonged. "It's fine," he reassured them. "You're with me." Inside, the lobby's chandeliers cast a warm glow over marble floors, and the faint scent of fresh lilies hung in the air. The kids stared around in awe, their exhaustion momentarily replaced by curiosity. Nicholas approached the front desk. 2 adjoining rooms. Tonight, and however many nights are needed after that. The receptionist hesitated, glancing at the children, then quickly nodded when Nicholas's gaze met hers. Within minutes, they were headed upstairs. When they reached the rooms, Emily's shoulders sagged with relief. Liam ran to the bed, pressing his face into the crisp white pillow as if it were the softest thing in the world. Nicholas stood in the doorway, feeling something strange, like he'd just made a decision far bigger than booking a hotel room. "I'll have dinner sent up," he said. "Order anything you want. No limits." Emily looked at him for a long moment. "Why are you helping us?" Nicholas opened his mouth, but for once, he didn't have a quick answer. All he could say was, "Because someone should." And in that moment, he realized that for the first time in years, his next move wouldn't be about profit, it would be about people. Dinner arrived on silver trays, steaming bowls of pasta, fresh bread, roasted chicken, and desserts that made Liam's eyes light up. The boy ate quickly at first, as if afraid the food might vanish, while Emily paced herself, watching her brother with quiet relief. Nicholas sat at the small dining table, sipping water and letting them eat. Normally, silence at a meal bothered him, but this time, it felt right, like the quiet was giving them room to breathe. Halfway through, Emily put her fork down. "Mom used to make pasta on Fridays," she said softly. "It smelled like this." Liam's chewing slowed. His small voice followed hers. "She said we'd have it again, after she got better." Nicholas felt something twist in his chest. He wasn't good with emotions, not his own, not anyone else's, but the raw honesty in their words left him without a shield. When the plates were cleared, he checked the time. "You both need rest," he said. "I'll come back in the morning." Emily frowned. You're not just going to leave us, right?" Nicholas looked her straight in the eye. "No. I'm not." For a man who'd built his empire by walking away from anything that wasn't business, the promise felt heavier than any deal he'd ever signed. And deep down, he knew this was just the beginning. Nicholas barely slept that night. Lying in his penthouse bed, he kept seeing Emily's guarded eyes and Liam's small frame curled around that worn-out bear. By morning, he'd already decided, he couldn't just hand them off to some shelter and walk away. Not when they'd trusted him. Not when they had no one else. He arrived at the hotel early, knocking gently on their door. Emily answered, her hair still messy from sleep, but she managed a small smile when she saw him. Liam peeked out from behind her, clutching his bear. "I thought maybe you wouldn't come," Emily admitted. "I told you," Nicholas said, stepping inside, "I don't break my promises." He set 2 paper bags on the table. "Breakfast. Pancakes, eggs, fruit, whatever you want." As they ate, Nicholas asked careful questions. Where had they been living? How had their mom been sick? He learned they'd been staying in a small apartment, barely making rent, and when their mother's illness worsened, she'd hidden just how bad it was so they wouldn't worry. By the time she passed in the early hours of the morning, they'd had no money, no family nearby, and nowhere to go. Nicholas listened without interrupting. Every detail made it clearer, these kids weren't just temporarily unlucky. They had been fighting for survival long before he met them. And that made him certain, if he walked away now, he'd be no better than everyone else who'd already left them behind. After breakfast, Nicholas made a call from the hotel room, his tone clipped and efficient. "I need a lawyer and a social worker here within the hour." Quietly. Emily and Liam exchanged nervous glances. Are we in trouble? Emily asked. No, Nicholas assured them, softening his voice. I just want to make sure you're protected. Legally. Financially. Everything. When the lawyer arrived, Nicholas introduced her as someone who helped solve problems fast. She spoke gently to the children, explaining that they would need temporary guardianship papers so Nicholas could act on their behalf, get them into school, secure a permanent home, handle anything official. Emily listened carefully, glancing at Nicholas. You'd be the one looking after us? If you'll let me, he said simply. Liam's eyes widened. We'd have a house. Nicholas crouched to his level. You'd have more than a house. You'd have a home. The social worker confirmed there were no immediate relatives willing or able to take them in. That sealed it for Nicholas. He wasn't about to let strangers decide their future when he was standing right there. As the paperwork was prepared, he felt an unusual sense of urgency. Deals worth billions had never made his heart race like this. Because this wasn't about closing a transaction. It was about opening a door they'd never had before. By late afternoon, the temporary guardianship papers were signed. Nicholas watched as Emily carefully wrote her name in neat, deliberate letters, while Liam scribbled his with a child's uneven hand. When it was done, the lawyer handed Nicholas the folder. You're officially responsible for them now. The words hit him harder than expected. Responsible. It wasn't a title he'd ever sought outside of his business empire, but here, it felt different. He took the kids shopping next. At first, they seemed hesitant to pick anything, glancing at price tags like they were about to get scolded. Nicholas knelt down and told them, forget the numbers. Pick what you like. Emily eventually chose a soft blue dress and a pair of sneakers. Liam picked a hoodie with a cartoon rocket ship on it and clutched it like a treasure. On the way out, Nicholas noticed people staring, a billionaire with 2 children who clearly weren't his, walking out of a store with bags in both hands. For once, he didn't care about the whispers. That evening, instead of returning to the hotel, Nicholas drove them to a quiet suburban neighborhood. The car stopped in front of a large, modern home with wide windows and a yard big enough for kids to run in. This is yours now, Nicholas said. Emily's mouth fell open. Liam dropped his bear, running to the front gate as if afraid the house might disappear. And for the first time in years, Nicholas felt something he couldn't buy, pure, unfiltered joy. The children stepped inside cautiously, as though they might break something just by breathing too hard. The house smelled faintly of fresh paint and cedar, the air cool from the central system humming softly. This place has been waiting for someone to make it a home, Nicholas said, leading them into the living room. Sunlight poured in through tall windows, illuminating the polished wood floors. Emily's fingers grazed the back of the couch, while Liam darted from room to room, his laughter echoing off the walls. Every now and then, he'd shout, Emily, come see this one, before disappearing again. Nicholas followed them upstairs. 2 bedrooms for you, he said, pointing. And another one if you ever decide you want to share, though I'm guessing you might not. Emily smiled faintly, a rare crack in her guarded expression. It's nice. Really nice. He crouched down so he was at eye level. This isn't charity, Emily. I'm not doing this because I pity you. I'm doing it because I want to. Because you deserve it. Her eyes glistened. Nobody's ever said that to us before. Nicholas hesitated, then gently placed a hand on her shoulder. Get used to hearing it. That night, as he left them with new bedding, warm lights, and a stocked kitchen, Nicholas realized something. He had built towers, companies, and fortunes. But this was the first time he'd built a life for someone. Over the next few days, the house slowly transformed. Boxes of groceries filled the pantry, soft blankets and pillows appeared in every room, and the fridge was stocked with more food than Emily and Liam had seen in months. Nicholas made sure each child had clothes that actually fit, books they liked, and small touches that made the rooms feel personal, Emily's favorite color on her bedsheets, Liam's rocket ship posters on the wall. But it wasn't just about material things. Nicholas made time for dinners at the table, where they talked about their day. He took them to the park in the afternoons, letting Liam race across the grass while Emily read on a bench nearby. One evening, as the sun dipped low, Emily quietly said, "It still feels strange, not worrying about where we'll sleep." Nicholas looked at her seriously. "That's because you've been living in survival mode for too long. That's over now." For a moment, the girl's eyes searched his, as if she were testing the truth of his words. Then, for the first time since they'd met, she smiled without hesitation. It was then Nicholas understood, money could buy them comfort, safety, and stability. But trust? That had to be earned. And he was willing to work for it, no matter how long it took. Weeks turned into months, and the once empty house became filled with the sounds of life, Liam's laughter drifting down the hall, Emily's quiet singing while she helped in the kitchen, and even the occasional chaos of spilled juice or a toppled stack of books. Nicholas found himself adjusting his schedule, moving meetings, and even saying no to deals that would take him away for too long. His assistants whispered about how uncharacteristic it was, but Nicholas didn't care. One crisp autumn afternoon, the three of them sat on the porch, watching leaves tumble across the yard. Liam was drawing rockets in a sketchpad, while Emily sipped hot cocoa beside Nicholas. "Do you ever think about, what if you hadn't stopped that day?" she asked suddenly. Nicholas thought for a moment, his gaze fixed on the street ahead. "Then my life would still be full," he said. "But it wouldn't be whole." Emily's eyes softened, and without another word, she leaned her head on his shoulder. Liam, oblivious to the weight of the conversation, held up his sketch and shouted, "Look! It's our house, with rockets so we can fly anywhere." Nicholas chuckled. "Looks perfect to me." In that moment, he realized that this wasn't just about giving them a home, it was about giving all three of them a new beginning. And for the first time in his life, Nicholas Hale, the man who once thought he had everything, finally did.